chat. I don't know. Let me see. Does it show up on Substack yet?
Yeah, I can see it in the broadcasting software.
Maybe does it show up on Substack? Okay, cool. All right. So on Substack, I accidentally kicked the hornet's nest of downright stupidity. Okay. So I made this comment, and I'm going to read it to you guys for the people that aren't watching the video live. My comment was, too many on the right are making an idol out of Western civilization. Lost in idolatry, no different than your typical pick and choose cafeteria neo-pagan. Western civilization is Plato, Shakespeare, Michelangelo, and Bach, but it's also LGBTQ, trans parades, abortion pills, OnlyFans, etc. We need to be honest.
Right.
We need to really define what is Western civilization. And I got a lot of pushback from that. I mean, not from everybody, but from a decent amount. And one of the most ironic comments on it, and I should have clipped it and put it on this little presentation, was a comment from, I forgot the guy's name, who he defends Western civilization with like a bunch of statue posting. And as soon as I looked at it, I was like, wait a second, there's something wrong with this statue post. And I realized that he posted a statue and it looked like a Greco-Roman building with a statue of David. And I'm like, that doesn't look right. And I realized that what he posted as his example of Western civilization was actually a picture of the Chicago World Fair. So he posted basically an idol, a plaster mold of Western civilization, right? Which it was a black and white picture of the Chicago's World Fair, right, where they recreated a Greco-Roman kind of city and stuff. It was really interesting that's what he used to defend against me calling Statue Bros idolaters of Western civilization, right? And I just thought that was hilarious, right? Because I was like, you literally posted a plaster mold of that. Now, look, I get it, right? And before we start on this next little project, I love Europe, right? I love America. I love the good and the bad of both, the cultures, the traditions, the history of the European people. Because you know what, I am European, and I'm also American, but I am European, and I love the Anglo-Saxon world. I love the Francophile world. I love I love it all, right? The Latin world, and I love the Greco-Roman. We're on the same page, guys. But what I'm trying to say is that we need to be able to look at these kind of stuff realistically, and we need, in order to move on to a proper spiritual understanding of everything, we need to fully understand what we're talking about and make sure we're not making idols out of things. Because if we do that, we are no different than the people on the left. And my main kind of point is that, the criticism, Phisto, of people on the left, how they love humanity. You've heard that before. Oh, I love humans. I'm but they hate their neighbors. They'll send all their money, or your money, right, to like African nations to cure like botfly infestations or something like that. But they hate their neighbors, and they have nothing but contempt for their neighbors. So in a way, by making an idol out of Western civilization, right, making an idol out of this, like making a false idol, like a mistaken kind of idealized version of Western civilization, you're no different than that kind of altruistic, suicidal altruistic leftist, because you're not really doing the right thing. So I wanted to talk about that, because it kind of triggered me to use a lefty term, right, to the point where I just thought a lot about it. So I wanted to kind of put my thoughts into a more cohesive thought, and I want your input. So we're gonna go on to this. So let's move on to the next part. So what is
Black Ibis, a PowerPoint?
A PowerPoint, guys. I'm getting a PowerPoint. Okay,
it.
I like this, right? We're using the power of technology, Faustian technology, right? So what is
early 2000 Maxine?
What is Western civilization, right? What do you mean when you talk that, right? What is it? What are the characteristics? Is it just a bunch of cool statues? Is it like David, right? Is it the Statue of David? Is it the Roman Empire? Is it, you know, um, like, what is it, right? Like, we need to define it. You can't just say, I love Western civilization. Okay, well, that is a big thing. Where does it start? Does it start with the Greeks? If you open, where does like most little like of your like school history books start? Usually like the Mycenaeans, right? Like the early proto-Greek civilizations in the Mediterranean, right? Well,
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah.
odd because most of the Western civilization bros don't consider the East Western, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because
Well,
I got accused of being a foreigner, basically an Easterner, right? As a Romanian, even though we speak a Latin language. Anyways, right?
yeah. Right.
So does
Roma.
Western civilization start with the
Anyway.
Greeks?
Well, I mean, isn't that what's always taught? Is that it starts with the Greek city states?
Right.
It starts with the political achievements, the philosophical achievements of Greek civilization, the demos, democracy, republic. Immediately right off the bat, I'm seeing that suspiciously it starts with the Greeks because that supports our preferred narrative about ourselves.
Right. Right.
So we'll just,
And
I guess we'll start there and go, see, look, our democracy goes all the way back to
right.
3000 BC or whatever the hell.
Right. So it seems that Western civilization, when people use that, that nomenclature, tends to start with whatever you want it to start that basically justifies your opinions, right? So for uh your American revolutionary types, it starts with the Greeks because, well, the America is the new Greece, right? It's new Athens. We're the new shining city on the hill, and that's why
Mm-hmm.
Washington D.C. looks like a plaster mold version of Greek Greco-Roman cities. Democracy, because our democracy is just like the Athenian democracy, right? It's
Right,
basically,
absolutely.
it's
Yeah, it's
exactly
basically
that,
the same thing. It's basically isn't
right?
that we've been democratic for 5,000 years.
Right.
Isn't that cool?
We named our cities like Athens, Georgia, and
Yeah.
Cincinnati, right? After, Greek
Washington
and
Washington DC is
Washington, D.C.,
Greek
right?
for Athens.
Right,
I didn't
basically.
know if you guys knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Sure.
But if you're like a super right wing bro Protestant, it obviously starts with the Protestant Reformation and Western Europe. So it doesn't include us filthy Easterners or us filthy Orthodox, right? Us Byzantines. We're Eastern, right? Except when it's like Tchaikovsky and like the Nutcracker and all the other cultural things that you want to claim, right? Then that's Western, right?
Yeah.
So it's always kind of funny that this border moves, right? Now I'm being
Right.
facetious because there is a, you know, you could say that or the Western world is really the post Enlightenment Western European world, the Roman Catholic scholastic on world of Western Europe that diverged significantly from the Eastern Byzantine world, right? But then you have a problem, right? And the problem is that you have the problem of scholasticism and the Reformation, the Enlightenment, and all the stuff that came out of the Enlightenment, right? So the problem is all the great stuff of Western civilization is great, but you also have the Enlightenment, right? And the results of the
Mhm.
Enlightenment are LGBT pride parades, right? And I don't think I have to kind of, do I have to do a causality movement all the way from, the extreme focus on individuality of I can interpret the Bible my own way to I can interpret my sex my own way, right? They're very linked, guys. I don't know if you guys can see the logical causation of that, right?
Yeah.
Right. And communism, fascism, and liberal democracy are also direct descendants of the Enlightenment, right? So,
Yeah.
you have like, Nazi bros and fascist bros going, yeah, Western Civ, we got to defend Western Civ. Well, communism is also part of Western Civ because you can trace its philosophical groundings in Western civilization. But then, of course, they'll say, but no, it's the fault of those Middle Easterner non-Muslims, right?
Yeah.
But I think we're stretching the fact there, right? Because for every Middle Eastern non-Muslim that it was involved in communism, there was plenty of, European, Anglo-Saxon, Germanic people that were also involved in communism. So, anyways, you got to take both, right? You got to really analyze it. And the way I look at it, for example, when you look at Russia, Russia is stronger today because of communism, whether people want to admit it or not. Because,
True.
well,
100%
the
true.
orthodoxy as a religion is stronger today because it went through the crucible of communism,
Right.
right? And communism is integral to the modern Russian world or the modern Eastern European world by hitting that level of extreme materialism and going through it and past it. It allowed those Eastern European countries and the people and the people studying them to fully understand the pitfalls of severe dictatorial materialism, which is what communism is, and be able to combat it better in the future, hopefully. So to move on, you've heard this term before, the Faustian age, right? You ever heard that? The
Oh yeah,
Faustian
of
age,
course.
right?
You're
So
talking to a guy who's got his name's Phisto, man. Of course I've heard of
of
Faust.
course,
Give
right?
me a break. Give me a
So
break.
this is going to be a presentation. This is a Black Ibis presentation for people who don't This is like basic intro level stuff. Okay, so what is
Absolutely.
the Faustian
There will be a
age?
quiz later, and if you fail it, I will call you retarded.
Well, what does the Faustian age refer to, and where does it come from? Okay, so the
Right,
Faustian
sure.
age refers to an old German, it's like an old German medieval mythology. It's made. I think the most popular version of it was a play by Wolfgang von uh, Goethe. How do you say Goethe? Goethe.
Goth,
I
Goat.
think it's pronounced
Johann
like
Wolfgang von Goat.
Van Goethe or
Van
Goethe,
Goat.
right?
Just call it Goat.
All right.
Whatever.
So there you go, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe. So basically, the whole idea of the Faust myth is you had this dude, and he's like usually a magician or some kind of scientist or scholar, and he is just a depressed bastard. He wants more out of life. He's like studying. He's usually like an alchemist or some kind of that kind of figure, and he comes across the devil. Usually in the old versions, it's like at a crossroads, and in the newer versions, Mephistopheles appears to him, and he makes a deal with the devil. And what he gets is he gets like basically knowledge and power, mastery of the world in exchange for his soul. Right?
Mhm.
Very simple. It's your basic a deal with the devil mythology, right? You deal with the devil kind of like cultural understanding, right? And I mean, you even have like modern versions of it, like Damn Yankees, the musical. I don't know if you ever been heard that musical before. It's kind of the
I've not.
same.
No.
It's kind of the same thing, but like instead of like trading like material power, the main character wants to trade. Like he wants to become like the best pitcher for the Yankees, and he wants the Yankees to. No, he wants like his team to beat the Yankees, and the devil basically makes him into like the stud pitcher for like I think it's like the New York something like that. And anyways, it's the same story, but it's set in a baseball theme. So, anyways, the whole idea is that he summons a demon to get magic and power, to get knowledge, to get material wealth, and to get control over the environment. Right? That's kind of the whole point of the Faustian bargain, right? But
Right.
where does the idea of the Faustian age comes from? And it's from our boy Oswald Spengler, right? And I always remember Oswald Spengler because he reminds me of Oswald Cobblepot, which is the name of the penguin. And that's how I always remember it, right? And so who's your boy Oswald Spengler? Are you familiar with Spengler, Phisto?
Yes. Oh yeah. Sure am.
As all official right wingers should be familiar with
Yeah, I mean,
um
anybody remotely right wing in history is going to pretty much have heard of this, or at least investigated this guy's ideas at least a little
right.
bit.
Right. So our friend Spengler over here was like kind of like I think it was an amateur historian. I don't think it was an actual like
No, he was not.
yeah,
He was
but
just
he
a
was kind of
dude.
like a polymath, kind of a
Yeah.
a master of all, jack of all trades. And he wrote all these history books, and the big one was the decline of the West or the fall of the West, right?
This
And
guy's
that's
almost like a sorry, don't mean to interrupt, but this guy's almost like an Edward Gibbon or like a J.R.R. Tolkien. Like, guys, I wrote this book. Everyone's
right.
like, who the hell are you? Boom.
Right.
Anyway,
Well, he's basically the right wing, Edward Gibbon, basically, and
yeah,
his whole thing was, I'm gonna cough real fast. Yeah, his whole thing was
cop, cop.
basically, he talked about cycles of history, and but his focus was mostly on European history, and he kind of coined the idea of the Faustian age because he was big into the Wolfgang von
He's German. He's German.
Goethe,
Yeah,
and he's German, right?
these are his bedtime stories. These are the bedtime
Right.
stories he received. We all got like, I don't know, Red Riding Hood or whatever, and this guy got Mephistopheles and Faust and everything else. So fine.
Right. So for you guys listening, there are more into like, are more on the normie side of things, and you come across these like, you know, what do you call it? Like statue posting, the kind of right wing memes you find on the internet. They often refer to Spengler. It just Spengler gets referred to a lot. It gets to refer to a lot in right wing circles, and it's important. Have you read The Decline of the West, Fisto?
Only a little bit. The language is very what's the word I'm looking for?
It's
Uh
dense,
I, enigmatic. It's
right?
enigmatic in that German way, and it's just like I think I started to read it shortly after finishing Well, and it was just I can't do this right now. I'm gonna have to come
Right.
back to this. So it's on my list of things, but it was just no. I'm gonna wait on that guy.
Right. And the decline of the West influenced a lot of post World War II right wing European guys that wrote further histories, and it really he's obviously rejected by a lot of people on the left. Except interestingly enough, Adorno and a lot of the critical theory Marxist kind of liked him, which is kind of weird and an interesting thing. But they liked him because they read a lot of their, age of communism into his kind of cyclical history thing. So it's interesting, okay. But I think that it's interesting work to read and to really understand a lot of the conversations that are had, right? So his big
Yeah.
thing, and I'm going to kind of like give you the what were those books called back in high school? The Cliff Notes version of it, right?
Yes, Cliff Notes. Yes. This is the
So,
version
so
I'm
he talked,
familiar with. So thank you.
yeah, the Cliff Notes version of Spengler is that he, in his, his magnum opus, he talks about the cycles of history, and the cycles of history is race, culture, civilization, right? So a unit of history, a unit of people starts off as a race. So you could say, the Greeks, right? And we're talking about like the race of Greeks when they're in they're almost tribal kind of, early level, right? They're, they're barely developing their mystical kind of culture. They're early, like very early stage pagan Greeks, right? And then it moves on to being a culture. And the culture is the ideal place, right? And then finally, it ends on the civilization. And Spengler said civilization is what culture becomes once its creative influence wanes, intellect coming to rule once the soul has abdicated. Right. So in the Greco-Roman conception of Spenglerian history, the early Greeks in your mythical Greeks, right, in the Trojan War, the Peloponnesian Wars and stuff, they would be the race part. The culture would be like their ideal, right? Their, you know, I guess no, I take it that back. They would be no, the culture of the Greco-Romans would be like the early republic and the ideal kind of Athenian democracy, et cetera, et cetera. And then the civilization phase would be the late empire and its collapse, right? Because at that point it spans the world, right? And he says all like major cultures or major people go through this cycle, and it's kind of a ongoing, revolution, right? So he he identifies about like 8 or 10 different cultures, but his like three main ones that he talks about are European focused, and they're the Apollonian, the Magian or Magian, and the
Hmm.
Faustian, right? So the Apollonian high culture, that's your Greco-Romans, right? That would be your Greeks, your Romans, your Roman Empire, pre-Christianity, right? And they had their, rise and fall. Your Magian cultures would be your Abrahamic, the domination of the Abrahamic religions, um, and an age of mysticism. It's called Magian because I think it's named after the Magi that came to the birth of Christ, right? And
Right.
it's an era of like mysticism, spirituality, um, and this would be at its like civilizational height would be like the Middle Ages, right? The Middle Ages, and then finally, the final like era of history is the Faustian age, and we go back to the Faustian myth, right? And this is your Spengler identifies it as starting at the scholastic period of Western culture, right? So once people started really focusing on um, classifying and identifying scientific things, and then of course this is defined by the age of exploration, the Reformation, the wars of religion, and eventually, space, right? Is Faustian,
Hmm.
going into space, right? And you'll see a lot of guys on the right wing, talk about like, oh, the Faustian spirit, and I take on the Faustian spirit and that type of thing, right? I mean, we've all seen those memes. I think I've seen like 5 of them posted today, right? So that's what they're talking about. They're talking about Spengler's high cultures, and we are supposed to be in, according to Spengler, we are in the Faustian age right now. Well, the end of the Faustian age, basically, the death of the Faustian age. So some of the traits of the Faustian age are scholastic rationalism. And you guys, I don't need to explain what scholasticism is. You know, it's the Roman Catholic, monks studying science. Your Saint Thomas Aquinas, um, that whole thing, which eventually led into um, them systematically building systems to identify the world and eventually the natural world, and eventually trying to systematically identify God, a focus on rationalization and hyper rationalization, which led to individualism, the Reformation, Enlightenment, which are kind of all tied in together. And from the Enlightenment, you have liberalism, communism, fascism, futurism, postmodernism, and then everything that comes out of that, right? So those are all things that are Faustian in spirit. So I always find it ironic. I don't know if you guys do also, that the same people that are posting Greco-Roman statues are saying Faustian age. I'm a Faustian spirit. Well, I'm sorry, bro. You're misunderstanding your own Spengler-isms, right? Because those Greco-Roman statues are from a different age. They're an Apollinaриan age, right? The only people that use it properly are like what's his name? John Carter of Mars. He talks about the Apollonian age and the revival of an Apollonian age. The Faustian age is communism, my dudes, right?
Hmm.
It's the rationalistic, you know, scientific definition of labor. It's the scientific definition of capital. It's basically, and it's controlling of nature. The most Faustian stuff you have right now are really trans people, to be honest. Trans people and transhumanists are Faustian, right? Because they're basically giving up their bodies, right? What is the goal of a transhumanist but to upload their brain into a computer for immortality? If that doesn't sound like a Mistophelean like deal with the devil,
Yeah.
I don't know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
So is this Western civilization I'm supposed to idealize? Transhumanism? Because that belongs to the Faustian age, right? Elon Musk is a Faustian, right? Should I be proud of my Western civilization of uploading my brain into some crappy like chat GTP? because there's nothing more Faustian than that, my bros. Right? You know what I mean? Right?
Yeah, no,
So
absolutely. I think a lot of the posting is having not thought it through to its conclusion, and or wanting their cake and eating it too. Like, nah, I'm Faustian, but I'm gonna draw the line at the part where I would end up damned.
right,
As if
right,
that's how that works. It's just, wait, what?
right. Because I mean, if you really want to take, if you look at it this way, and anybody in the chat, feel free to correct me if I'm miscategorizing the idea of the Faustian spirit or whatever. Yeah, you can take, there's a good thing to it, right? Which is, the age of exploration and the idea of conquering the world. But there's also, remember, the Faustian bargain, with the good comes bad, right? So with the age of exploration is the defilement of the earth, right? With the age of scientific knowledge comes nuclear annihilation and much
Right.
worse
Well, yeah,
weapons of destruction.
yeah, to go back to my reference to Tolkien earlier, it's that scene where Saruman's coat of many colors is presented, and Gandalf criticizes him as saying, when you break something open to understand it, you leave the path of wisdom.
Correct, right?
I mean, that's Faustian, and that's where it gets
Well,
you.
Saruman is a Faustian spirit,
Yeah,
right?
100%. And we all see what happens to him at the end.
Right, because he makes a deal with the devil. He makes a deal with Sauron, right?
Yep.
So here's where we're going to go into this, right? Orthodox Christianity versus the Faustian spirit. Is Orthodox spirituality compatible with the Faustian spirit? I mean, anybody want to guess? Because
No,
I have my
I'm gonna
opinion.
guess no.
We're
I'm
gonna
gonna guess
probably
no.
I'm gonna guess no too, right? Yep, there we go. I said no. Okay. So what is the goal of Orthodox Christianity, right? The goal is theosis, right? Which, for you guys that don't know Orthodox Christianity, theosis is the transformation into the likeness of God through divine grace, right? By cleansing your passions, liturgy, that thing, right? And there's a focus on tradition, on following the apostolic faith that goes back to the Spenglerian Magian age, right? And there's a focus on community and togetherness and a unity of spirit, right? And
Yeah.
you compare the Orthodox versus the Faustian, and you really have some very simple kind of concepts, right? You have humility in the Orthodoxy versus the pride of the Faustian spirit, right? And part of an Orthodox spiritual outlook towards the world is that you have a dependence on God, that it is all about God's mercy. It is, Lord, have mercy on me, a sinner, right? That's the kind of the whole point, right? And versus that I have this assertive drive that I will attain, I will do stuff, right? The other focus is in eternity versus the material, right? A Faustian spirit is on manipulating and changing the material and temporal world, right? I'm going to I'm going to transmutate myself into a computer. I'm going to make myself immortal, right? The most Faustian dude in the world is actually not Elon Musk, but that one weirdo dude that wants to be immortal, who does all
Oh,
those,
that
like,
wants to live forever. I can't wait till
yeah.
he dies. I'm gonna laugh my ass off. It's gonna
Yeah,
be
right.
fucking hilarious.
That's the Faustian spirit. I'm going to
Yeah.
will myself into immortality through my scientific magic, right?
Yeah.
And then, of
Right.
course, you have the tradition versus the revolution and innovation, right? The Faustian spirit is a craving for novelty, and it's about overthrowing the establishment and that kind of stuff, right? I had a interesting little interaction with a little Protestant guy who was kind of dogging on orthodoxy today on Substack. You saw that little quick interaction we had.
I think so. I can't
Yeah, he
recall of it. I mean, there's so many quick interactions.
yeah I think he blocked me before I was able to save like the screenshot.
Ah,
Anyways,
of course.
he was saying, like, what if I want to be,
Oh,
what if I want to be Protestant because it's the tradition of my ancestors? What if I want to be blah blah blah? And I pointed out to him, well, I actually pointed out to other people because there's no point talking to Protestants. I pointed out
no.
that you keep on defining everything with what if I want? What if I
Yeah.
want? Right? Which is, yeah,
I
there we
think,
go. That's the Faustian spirit. I
yeah.
want, right?
just to nitpick slightly, I think that specific dude was actually mocking that concept, but at the same token, you are still 150% correct. I want this, we want this, I want this, we want no, shut up. Like there was another guy that I was talking to, in a similar vein, who was talking about the Christian nationalism, and he unironically said that we can make our own reality. And I'm like, bro, no, no, you
Right,
cannot.
right, right.
That's, dude, you're just another communist. Stop. Just
Right.
stop. Just
It,
repent, okay? For crying out loud.
right. It's just, you know, there's a kind of a slew of articles right now on Substack and across the internet, and they're written by Protestant guys. I think most of them like pastors or dudes in whatever churches, and one of them actually I came across it. I made a comment on it, and then a few days later, my priest actually shared it on our little private chat that we have for our church, and it was something along the all of them are about the same, and they're all like interchangeable, and it was something along the lines of like, you know, maybe we can like adopt like some of the elements that people, all these people are leaving our Protestant churches and they're going to like Orthodox churches because they really like all the incense and the bells and stuff. And maybe we should adopt some of those things. Maybe we can have like a traditional service, And the whole thing is so absurd because it misses the whole point, right?
Right.
Like you cannot separate the idea of the liturgy, the divine liturgy, from
Yeah.
everything else. It's not,
Yeah.
it. We don't do the liturgy because we like it, if that makes sense, right? It's not like,
No.
man, I really like the incense. I mean, I do really like the incense. It's my favorite part, right? I mean, it's one of my favorite parts, and I like the music and I like everything, but that's not
Yeah. No,
why we do
Alex.
it.
Alex. Yeah. No, Alex. If I could say something, as somebody who suffers with chronic pain and has permanent Charlie horses, the liturgy is a pain in the ass. But I mean that in the best way. That is exactly what it's supposed to be because I'm a fucking retard. So yeah,
Right.
it's medicine, it's surgery, it's medicine, it's you suck. This sucks. Good. That's the point.
Right.
The oh, we could have a traditional service. No, the logic there is the logic there is coffee shop sales are down. Perhaps we should sell incense. That's all that is. It's not any real understanding of, Americans. I hate to say it, but pain is not optional.
Right.
Pain is good. Suffering is good. Not being able
Right.
to DoorDash a cheeseburger to your face is amazing. That that
Right.
is that is intent. That is working as intended, my friends. I'm sorry. So let it
Right.
happen. Just let it work the magic. Because even though I said, literally came out of my mouth, liturgy. No, I'm glad it is. Thank God it is, because otherwise I would still be. I don't even want to think about it. Thank God
No.
it's a pain, because otherwise I'd be garbage, even more so
Right.
than I am now.
And like it is difficult, right? Standing for look,
Yeah.
man, wait till you've done the liturgy of Saint Basil. That's a long one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, hey, I'm taking work off Friday. It's a basil service because I guess it's one of his holy days or whatever, and I'm taking
Right.
Friday off to go. And I'm just like, whew, better do squats, better stretch, better. Well, not eat a good breakfast because I don't think you're supposed to. I don't even know, but it's like, yeah, let's go. Like dude, I've never taken the day off to go to church,
Right.
and here I am. Right? I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I've
let's.
been.
I'm
I
going to
think
the
I
gym,
went.
bro.
I think I went to. I went. I think I went to church like 10 days, like in a row, for
Wow.
the for nativity, and I'm
Dang.
gonna.
Okay.
What
Flexing.
our priest told us about the upcoming Lent, and he's all like, I want you to come to every single one. That's what he said. He's just like, I'm telling you to come to every single one.
Yeah, you're coming to every single one.
So you know what?
Alex, it's some of us in chat can deadlift 600 pounds, but can you deadlift 87 days of straight church count?
Right.
But yeah,
But it's like, once again, it's not about like, the pride of like going to church or anything
no,
like that. It's
no,
about that
it's
it
fun.
is
It's
it's not
great.
about us. That's the kind of
Yeah,
the point, right? The point is not like,
yeah,
it's not about like, I think like I want to vibe with some guitar. It's not about
no,
you. It's not
Yeah,
like it's
exactly.
not that. It's they're worshiping. I
Yeah.
hope you guys on Substack are seeing my slides. I put a good 30 minutes of work into these. um, all right. So in
Conclusion.
conclusion,
In
right?
conclusion.
Can Western civilization be an idol? Absolutely. I think that in a way, yes, it can absolutely be an idol. And it's an unrealistic idol because we have a hard time defining what it really is. Is the Faustian spirit a good thing, or is it, a thing that brought us to where we are today? Well, it's in its definition, right? It's literally a story about the deal with the devil, right?
Why would anybody think that ends well?
You
Like,
know, I
not even the
think
story. The story that not like this. It doesn't have a happy ending. I mean,
the the
one of the
the
things.
go
One of the things. Sorry, go ahead.
the goatee the gota I keep saying I want to say Gautier, like the singer who sings that
The
stupid
goat. Just
song.
call him the goat, man. Just call him the
the
goat.
goat version does have a
The
good ending
goat.
because the Virgin Mary comes and like decides to like take him back to heaven.
Oh,
So it's
okay.
kind of convoluted, but
It's fine.
but yeah, I mean, Twin Peaks is about the Faustian bargain, right? Of
Yeah.
civilization and technology, right? It's all about, we have to accept that. But you know what? We
Yeah.
cannot deny the Faustian spirit. The Faustian spirit did bring us where we are today. And like Jason in the chat said, the American pioneer spirit is driven by the Faustian age, right? The spirit of going and controlling the land, and that there's some good elements to it, but that part of that pioneer spirit was after the pioneers went, then they built oil derricks and sucked the land dry of its life, right? They depopulated like the buffalo herds, and
Mhm.
and all kinds of stuff that came along with this. So there's what it's trying to tell us is that there's a huge trade-off, right? Our technological age has given us wonders, amazing wonders of like medical and comfort technology. Um, the fact that I can like do my banking and pay my bills on my cell phone and talk to my mom across the country is amazing. That's the good thing of my cell phone. But I'm also addicted to staring into Instagram feeds, right? So it's a constant bargaining. And what is the biggest bargain we're making with right now? I mean, we're talking about like AI, where we're literally going to design and invent machines that will take away our ability to think, right? It's the ultimate Faustian bargain. I don't want to do
Yeah.
grammar, so I'm going to let a machine do my grammar for me, right? And that's
I
why
don't want to do spelling, so I'm going to let it do that. Now it's going to do the sentence writing. Now it's going to do the paper writing. Now it's going to do the book writing.
then it's going to drive my car, then it's going to run
And
my
it's going to drive my car.
civilization, then it's
Yeah.
going to run everything. And then people like Elon Musk want to put it into my skull and just run my entire life, right? It's going to be my wife. It's going to, so yeah, I get
Yeah.
ultimate like robo goonin, but I also am no longer human, right? I am,
No, you're not.
and where does Faust end in the bargain? In hell, right? So in a way, yeah, like maybe we should reject this. Maybe we should look at. So there was this great series of books, right? And they're written by Father John Strickland. And the first one is called The Age of Paradise. And it's kind of a Orthodox Christian view of history. And he there's four books and he kind of names it his different ages, but the first age is The Age of Paradise. And I'm probably going to do a full series on these books
Ooh.
eventually, right? And I think everybody should read them. But his breakdown on his kind of like riff off the Spenglerian ages is, and Dr. Zachary Porco on his podcast talks about this too. A better way to look at it is that we have the pagan age, which is the pre-Christian age, the age of mysticism, the age of pure paganism, which is where everybody fully believed in all the pagan gods, and the idea, the world was a sacred world, and you can take a lot of like Mircea Eliade's ideas into the pagan world. And the second age after that is the Christian world, right? The age of paradise, the age of Christianity, which went from about the birth of Christ all the way to really the Enlightenment, right? And then you have the modern era, and then which is the secular era, which I would say starts with really the Reformation and ends through, the 20th century. And then finally, what we're entering is really the age of nihilism is where we're at right now, where even the ideas of the secular age have completely fallen apart, right? We're in an age where even the Faustian ideas of, self actualization and that kind of stuff have fallen apart, and nobody believes anything anymore. It's basically pure individualism. I'll do what I want. And it's ultimate like postmodernism, to where everything is relative. There's nothing left. And it's led to kind of a weird nihilism that we've kind of fallen into, right? So there's some very interesting kind of things to think about that. We can go in that type of stuff, in the future. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, it's almost like paganism without the afterlife.
yeah. And so
Ugh.
when this is something that's gonna this is where we're gonna get completely hated by everybody
Whatever.
now, because I'm gonna go into this
Bring it.
topic, which is Christian nationalism, right?
Bring it, bitches.
So a lot of the stuff about Western civilization and the Faustian age, comes from it's on the right. It's a right wing thing, right? And in the same currents, you have the idea of Christian nationalism, and I've noticed on Substack kind of an explosion of Christian nationalism retardation. I don't know if you've seen those accounts, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
like the
Oh yeah.
AI account, and it's like glowy as hell, right? I mean, it is the glowiest
Super
things you can
glowy.
have. And you can actually look into like what some of these people are like, who they are in real life behind these accounts,
Yeah.
and they're just the most ridiculous like retards on the face of the planet, right? But I'm going to make the statement that I think defines our view, right? And I think you're going to agree with me. So we're going to make it the Black Ibis Social Club idea, right?
All right.
A Christian nation cannot exist until you have a nation of Christians.
Yeah.
Does that make
Obviously.
sense?
Yeah.
You cannot
Obviously.
have a Christian nationalism without a nation of Christians. Now,
Yeah.
I am not against the idea of a Christian nationalism, right? For example, I believe in the Byzantine Christian and Orthodox imperium, right, where individual nation states, for example, like Romanians or Americans and Greeks or whatever, are under this greater Orthodox imperium, right? The only problem with that, right, is that you need nations of Christians to be able to do that. And we don't have a nation of Christians, right? Um,
No.
I would classify the United States, America, and the Faustian West, if we're going to use those terms, as a post-Christian apostate state, right? Because not only were we at one time majority Christian, but right now we are majority Christian apostates. Like
Yeah.
our culture, not you, bro. I know you, bro. You love Jesus and everything, and you go to your church every Sunday and you love your Bible, right? But that's not
Right.
everybody, okay?
Right.
Everybody is out there protesting and being crazy and being degenerates on OnlyFans and stuff. We are a Christian apostate nation, and we have to accept that fact, right?
Right.
So a Christian nationalism, a Christian imperium or whatever, needs to be bottom up, right?
Yep.
Rome was converted into Christianity. It took about 500-600 years for the Christians
Yeah.
to convert Rome. It was done bottom up. It was done
Yep.
by the martyrs, did it by accepting the laws of Rome, standing in front of the lions, going into the Colosseum, getting murdered, escaping into the desert, building the hospitals while they were doing that, continuing to do the liturgy while they were doing that. And they converted from the bottom up until, it wasn't like Constantine was, yo, I'm Christian now, everybody's
No.
Christian. It
No.
was a hundreds of years of, and all that was
Yeah.
undone by our Faustian individualism that we live in today, right? So if we're going to ever do it again, you got to do it next door. All right. You got to do it one step at a time, one church at a time, one person at a time. And maybe in another 600 years, we might have another, the reality of Christian nationalism, right? Top down religious nationalism does not work. All right. We all have read about the French Revolution and, Robespierre's, was the cult of reason, right? Where
Yeah. The cult of the supreme being.
the cult of the supreme being, right?
Or they built giant orgy churches in the middle of Paris. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Sure.
and they changed the calendar, and it was like, Brumiere 14 or whatever, and a more logical thing,
Right.
like the
Right.
Celsius and the centimeters. Ugh.
Gross.
Right?
The metric system is Faustian, is the Faustian
It is.
Spirit manifest.
It is completely Faustian, right? But you know what I mean,
Completely Faustian.
right?
I'm going to shoot it with my America gun, like all good Americans.
Right. And
Symmetric system, you shoot it.
the most retarded thing about the idea of Christian nationalism, because all these accounts that are Christian nationalists, besides being straight out of Langley, right, are the fact that they're all Protestant, right? And
yeah, funny how that works.
Pan-Protestant nationalism is absolutely retarded, because there's 50,000 denominations of Protestants. Right, there's probably like 20 between my house and my church, which is like about 30-minute drive. I probably passed like 17 different Protestant church, and they all hate each other and believe something completely different.
Yeah,
right. You can't have
a pan-Protestant state is just waiting to get conquered by the communists. That's all that is. You're just waiting around. You're just waiting around for the final defeat. That's all that is.
Right. Because I mean, I can go across the street and there's a like a Black Baptist church with old ladies with crazy hats, and they're singing about the Spirit. And then a few blocks away, you've got the Church of the Bible with the giant movie screen, and the guy's talking about how much he loves that Middle Eastern state, and it just, none of you guys agree on anything. How can you have a nation when you don't even agree on basic theology, my dudes? Right? That's ridiculous. It's just absolutely retarded, and there's no even point in even like engaging with that kind of stuff is absolutely stupid. So like that's kind of the end of that. If you want to live in a Christian,
I almost feel like,
yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I almost feel like Jason's Mormon project, I think in a lot of ways that's going to be a very excellent nail in the coffin for the whole idea. Like, I'm really excited to see what he comes up with, but I think his general idea is very correct, which, correct me if I'm wrong, but like Mormonism is the American Protestant sect. And to think that any of these others are even going to remotely compete with them is ridiculous, because they have the unity, they have the money.
Yeah, Mormonism is Faustian, bro. I'm gonna get my own planet. I'm gonna get my own planet. I'm my own prophet.
Planet full of bitches.
Prophet.
Planet full of bitches. Hell yeah.
My own prophet. Anyway, I'm gonna make it all the way to my own planet. It's gonna be Planet Xenu 4 is what I'm gonna name my planet. And it's going to be purple, and it's going to grow purple.
That's crazy, dude.
Purple flowers and buds on it. I mean, come on, man.
All the purple.
All right.
Purple supremacy. Let's go.
I'm a master of my planet. But yeah, I mean, it's just stupid, man. It's just not even worth it, man. And like I said on Substack, if you see these these accounts with the flaming Jesus, and it's got like a sword of Archangel Michael and stuff, and it's like, yeah, you got to respect the Christian nation. Shut up, Fed. That's really like stop.
Fed.
You're embarrassing yourself. Go home.
Shut up, Fed Tard.
Go back to that tent revival. Like, I mean, just like, let's just be honest here. Like, you don't even know what you're talking about half the time. So these people are stupid.
Right.
It's just not even worth